Now we're live. Good afternoon and welcome back to Salon Talks. I'm Alli Joseph and I'm so excited, genuinely, to be joined today by a guy who's been such a funny presence in media and a nuanced actor for years, Greg Kinnear.
Hi.
Hi. From the way back in E! Entertainment Television as the original host of Talk Soup to the role in James L. Brooks' hit film As Good As It Gets, one of my favorites, opposite Jack Nicholson and Helen Hunt, that garnered him a Best Supporting Actor nom. Greg has shown himself to be one of the most versatile talents working today. He hits the smaller screen this month in the final season of House of Cards. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
for having me.
You're welcome. You came all the way from Portugal to see us.
I did. I just swung over from Portugal to pop in here to your sweet little digs, and it's good to be here.
And thank you for coming, and withstood a little hurricane there, I understand.
I did. I have a little jet lag, that thing where the night before, because I literally was there 48 hours ago, so when you go to bed at night, of course, you keep telling yourself, okay, now I'm asleep. I'm sleeping now, and I'm going to sleep now. I'm drifting off in 3, 2, 1, here I go. I'm going to sleep. Here we go. So you do that for hours and hours on rotation, so I'm a little foggy, but feeling good.
That's good. Well, welcome back to the East here. So you've been on the audience radar for a really long time in an excellent way, but I don't think a lot of people know about your humble beginnings as a high school radio host in Indiana. School Days with a Z. Yeah. With Greg Kinnear. Tell us about your first gig as a host.
Yeah, it was not in Indiana. It was actually in Athens, Greece. So I grew up in Indiana, and by the time we were in D.C. after that for a couple years, and then my father worked for the State Department, and there we did find ourselves in Greece in the 70s. And there was a little Armed Forces radio station there, AFRTS, and they had a small 50,000 megawatt, I'm making it up, station that would broadcast to the greater Athens area. And they played music, and there was a guy named Tanner Parsons, who
a name you hear in Greece often.
No, another American expat living over in Greece with his family. He graduated high school, and he came up to me right before he graduated. He said, "Hey, you want to do the show School Days that I currently do at the radio station?" I said, "Sure." So went in there on Saturdays and played records and basically just talked and smack and tried to fill the hour. Same thing I've been doing for all these years.
Okay, so see, just proof again that you certainly can't believe everything that you read. But I did get the high school. Was the high school era?
Yeah, it was high school. Yeah, it was high school. Yeah, I did it for like 2 years. I got fired.
No.
Yeah, Marine sergeant who ran the station.
What did you do,
Greg? I didn't think I did anything wrong. I wasn't great at getting there on time. That was a struggle for me. But he was very nice, but he just said, I don't think this is going to work out. So I lasted for 2 years, though. So.
But 2 years is good.
That's right.
Cheers for 2 years. So people know about your work as an actor, of course, and television host, but maybe not that time spent abroad when you were a kid. So moving a lot with a diplomat dad, it probably affected your worldview. What do you think you learned most from those nomadic days in Greece and also, I think, Lebanon? Right?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was an incredible gift. I still think back about how lucky I was to have just been exposed to show up in Beirut, Lebanon at 12 years old, and it's impossible not to just instantly have a different perspective on the world. I wish I could tell you, well, that's how I became so worldly, you see. But it just created an awareness and a perspective that was always valuable and still has always been valuable, that, especially here in the States, the land of plenty, you can look around, and I always do keep I think some sense of man, it ain't like this everywhere, and I think that had a lot to do with just culturally that experience. And also in Lebanon, while we were there, the Civil War started shortly after we were there, and shelling and fighting at night, and literally to see a beautiful country implode was a frightening thing, and I just. It's hard to imagine that can happen, that a civil war can happen in a country, but it stuck with me, and I still think about it, and obviously it was a horrible thing, but so it gave me a lot of a lot of context, and yet at the same time I find myself going back to Europe or anywhere around the world and always learning, starting all over again and saying, oh, yeah, that's how they see it.
Right, of course, and especially in these times, America as an entity can be persona non grata, unfortunately, in a lot of places. So I think your presence somewhere as an American often shifts,
Sure.
Depending on the political times. So, but just transitioning back to some of the older stuff, you got to work for MTV in the fun days. That's what I call the fun days, being people of a certain age. I was at VH1 sometime after that, and there was so much you could learn about production.
Yeah.
I think as a person interested in media, whether you're on camera or behind the camera, if you just watch people. So, what were your biggest takeaways about being talent and showbiz there in the mid '80s when MTV was still so new?
Well, I didn't work at MTV.
You didn't work at MTV?
No, I didn't work at MTV. I auditioned.
You did, and they made you a reporter, I thought.
No, I auditioned for him. This is the sad portion of the interview. I didn't get the gig, but I got a nice tape out of it. I got a nice audition tape out of it, and there was another fledgling cable channel. I mean, MTV. I mean, geez, you would have remembered me, but I went to this other sort of fledgling cable channel starting up called Movie Time. Before E was E, it was called Movie Time, and it was done in this, cheap little studio on Santa Monica Boulevard in Los Angeles, and we would basically run clips of interviews and behind-the-scenes footage, anything we can get our hands on, and I was a, VJ, host, whatever the hell you want to call it, and I basically sat in front of a camera and tried to fill my 3-hour block however I could with very questionable entertainment. And that was, but it was like college for me. I mean, really, it was like I'd come out of school and studied, broadcast journalism, but really you don't get any hands-on experience. This was like a chance to really get comfortable with a camera, and it was a fairly small and rough operation, but it was, I made some great friends there, and it was very, it was great to have a place to go every day and a sense of, I did get, I think, some sense and some early perspective on showbiz doing that, but it was, you did your own makeup, man. It was a rough and tumble operation.
And sometimes if you still have to do your own makeup, even walking in the street, like sometimes you got to get your gig like
that. Got to do what you got to do,
man. It makes you versatile,
yeah,
absolutely. Exactly. 3 hours is a long time to fill.
That's right. Yes, you bet your ass it is.
Wow.
3 hours. Well, like I said, I mean, we'd have a clip of some Steven Seagal movie, and I'd, stretch that out. I just remember the floor manager just kept going like this all day long. Just
make it longer. Make it a lot longer.
Going. And but somehow we would fill our hours.
And transitioning later, I think now I'm going to see if I can get this right. I'm going to just rip up all my questions because something might be wrong with all of them. So now I'm frightened. But I think because I did watch you in Talk Soup. Yes. And around 1991.
That was me in Talk Soup.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sorry, that's right.
Okay, sorry, the producer's ears. I'm excited now. I got it right. Another opportunity, even though you have clips to throw to and stuff like that, of time to fill a time show. Yeah. Did you like being sort of the solo stand-up guy? It was very funny. It's how I came to know you. Yeah,
it was. I do think that the movie time, the good old movie time ruckus experience, not MTV, did help that. I mean, so when I got that show and started looking at highlights of, Jerry Springer and Sally Jesse Raphael and whoever was talking on daytime television and filling the time, I had some experience, doing that, so I felt pretty comfortable. When I took the show, E kind of, I think, had positioned it was going to be like a serious, reverent look at talk shows, and it just, as soon as we started doing it, we were like, there is no serious version of doing this show, and it just kind of spiraled sort of out of control with time. But I don't think the network knew we were on for 2 years. We had such good, great group of people working on it. It was great fun, and at some point we started getting mail from people. I couldn't believe anybody saw the show. I could not believe anybody was actually watching this show.
What did they ask you? I must ask. What kind of mail did you get?
We got weird things, man. They would send. I got strange mail on that show. I mean, people would send things in, and it was a strong reaction to it, and it grew in volume to the point where me and Eileen Graham, my producer, would say, "Wow, we're actually being seen by people." And even today, I'm amazed that like people say, "Well, I first knew you on Talk Soup, and I didn't know you were watching America."
So millennials, if you're watching,
yeah,
this is Greg Kinnear.
Yeah,
you would have known him from Talk Soup, not MTV.
Grew up in the wrong generation, kid. What can I tell you?
They did. So switching over to film, making that transition from smaller screen and and having to do everything on your own, and then working with a team of actors. You then proved very ably that you could do not just comedy but drama and trauma in your role as Simon in As Good as It Gets, one of my personal favorites, where you pretty much single-handedly win over Jack Nicholson's homophobic character. How do you change your preparation for a comedy role versus a drama? Because it seems like it would be very different in your approach to getting your head ready.
Yeah, no, I think... Yeah, it's always writing, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's always what's down there, and I tend to, I've been drawn to both and had really great experiences doing both. We just did House of Cards, which is so great at how reverent it is, how serious it is. It all is. Listen, we all had a great time making the show, and it's a lot of, I've not like just because you're doing a drama, suddenly everybody has to walk in with a shift of attitude. But it's a different thing. I mean, I feel like comedy is more timing based, and but in a way, I do feel like they all live in the same basket, which is honesty and reality. I mean, there is some comedy that can be super heightened. Where I haven't done it, and I don't know how like Jim Carrey would do some of those crazy roles that he would do, and and I'd be amazed with everybody else. But any that I've done has all kind of been based in character stuff and some element of truth. Nothing too. I mean, Matt Damon and I guess were conjoined twins and Stuck on You, which is a little heightened, but with a Fairley Brothers movie. But that's about as far as I got. Fairley
Brothers is pretty far.
Yeah.
Far-fetched.
Yeah,
you will hear a lot
far.
of things in that.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Is it Me, Myself, and Irene, or is it? I'm a fan of theirs. And
yeah.
Shut up! You got a dot in your head. I taste ice cream. Everyone always has a New England accent, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's Me, Myself, and Irene.
That's right.
But
don't
Stuck
know.
on You, I certainly loved, and what a strange thing to be conjoined on camera by special effects.
By Velcro.
And how was it Velcro?
Yeah, it was like I remember Matt and I showing up for the first day auditioning with Pete and Bobby, and it was like nobody had ever discussed this question of how we were going to be conjoined. And Pete was like, just wrap them up in some rope or something. Let's see. We literally got some Velcro and just kind of walked around the office, and Pete and Bobby were like, yeah, that'll work.
So that's like a little window into the Fairley Brothers writing process. This will be funny. Let's figure it out later.
Oh no, it's so sweet though. I mean, it was like their whole thing is just based on the feel and what's organic, and they're more focused on much more important things. There would be somebody who could be way more fascinated by the mechanism of how these two are going to be conjoined, and that's just not their thing, Mm-hmm. And it all worked.
All right. Well, since you mentioned House of Cards, and that is why you're here,
yeah,
let's talk about that. So you're stepping into a new character. And, of course, everyone has heard of the dust-up over Kevin Spacey being fired and Robin Wright taking the lead role. She is the president in this. We can't give away too much because it hasn't aired yet. But you are working as the sibling of the never-aging Diane Lane. I just stared at her. Yeah. That's amazing. And you play this arch-conservative, sort of devious character. So what kind of experience was that for you in these interesting and challenging political times?
Well, it was great. Our writers had created, they sort of used the template of the Koch brothers, or, there's been some other kind of silent power brokers out, I suppose, in D.C. over the years, kind of that fifth estate of power where they haven't been voted into office. They don't really have a mandate, but through their money and their connections, they're able to, manipulate and push an agenda. And in the case of us, I mean, we don't want Claire Hale in the White House, obviously, and so that's Diane plays my sister, Annette. I'm Bill Shepard, and the Shepards are, there's a little ego thing. There's buildings everywhere with their names on it. They're very, very powerful and well known, but they're quietly trying to undermine her, and we have secrets on her, and of course there's great currency in secrets, and the show's tradition of creating devious characters continues. I mean, they did a great job kind of finding a great angle for these two.
Indeed, and the other characters, though, I thought it was interesting, have been developed, most of them,
sure.
heavily for the past
No, it was so
5
weird.
seasons.
It's like I'm a fan of the show, and so suddenly you're watching House of Cards, but then you're actually in House of Cards. I'm like crawling into the television suddenly on these incredible sets in that kind of still atmosphere that they've perfected amazingly, and you're interacting with Robin and Michael and all of the people that you've come to know, and it's a little surreal, really. And they, obviously they just have such a great tone with that show. It's hard to set something like that so clearly, but they've had it for 5 years. Yes,
and though it should be noted, and by the way, if you're just joining us, not just millennials, you of course know Greg Kinnear, starting out in Talk Soup, and many years later through award-nominated films, and now in the final season of House of Cards, which premieres. When can people start binging?
I believe it's November.
It's November 2nd, I think.
People are whispering
carefully scheduled before Election Day.
Yes. Maybe. Yes,
maybe.
It could have a little something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah, so we can't tell you too much about it, but he plays a new character that we have never seen before, and stepping into this role where there's many other characters that have been there for a long time. So when the show began, though, I think it needs to be said, we were living in very different times politically. So how have the writers addressed, whatever you can say, some of the changes that we've seen in the country? And now it's skewing more angry, more red, perhaps, about other than the addition of your character, who is a strong conservative.
Well, I mean, I think they've. I kind of feel like the show will be a Rorschach test. I think you'll watch it and listen. People are tracking what's happening in Washington, more than ever, and I think people will see parts and elements of the show mirrored in different ways in terms of their own perspective. But I don't think that the writers necessarily were, trying to, things were happening so quickly. I mean, remember, you had Kevin disappear from the show, and very quickly they made the decision, the good decision, and by the way, Robin deserves a lot of the credit for that as a producer and as somebody who could have said, he's out, well, I'm out too. She's kept that train on the tracks. Good for her, good for the crew, good for the fans, that deserve to have a final season. So, but I think that it's, just one of those things where you'll recognize certain elements from what's happening, but at the end of the day, I think the writer's biggest task was to try to tell a full-bodied story about Claire as the president. And her, listen, she's not, power and virtue don't go together. This is, it's not Claire for, it's not, I don't know how I feel about Claire as president. Robin, maybe, but it's very funny to just kind of watch it was funny at the time watching the speed with which they had to kind of pick up the pieces, because they did a fantastic job and ultimately kept it, I think, entertaining. But the show always, as it always has done, it has some relevancy in what's happening.
It does, and I think it is a show for fans,
Sure.
Which is not to say most writers probably think theirs are, but this really is, because I noticed throughout what we were allowed to see of the season that there was there were many references far back,
Yeah.
nuggets,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
will,
No,
that you would have to know.
Completely true.
So that could also draw in a new audience who has not seen and said, what the heck are they talking about?
Yeah,
Let's go back and watch.
I think the actual, listen, it's 8 episodes and it's a conclusion, and it is. If you were a fan of the show, I think I think it's satisfying, and I think if you're somebody who wants to watch 8 episodes of a well-made show, you can dive in and watch this, and I don't think you're going to be lost.
Mm-hmm. So in this case, unlike some of your other roles, you get to be a kind of a bad guy. So what's the most fun or the best thing about playing a bad guy, and the worst?
Yeah, I don't know, man. The best is just, listen, they have a long history on that show of writing devious characters, and it's great. It's great fun, particularly grounded in politics, because people, they care. It matters. They're passionate. You're passionate, whether you're passionate about this thing or that thing or the right thing or the wrong thing, doesn't matter. You're passionate, and certainly Bill Shepard has an agenda, a very clear agenda. So, and it's just great. It's great to be devious and conniving and underhanded. I don't get to do that enough. So it was. I'm trying to answer the second half of your question, which is what's not good about it. I don't really have a good answer for you, because I really enjoyed it.
You don't get to be Velcroed to somebody and be funny, but
That's true.
But it's it's the pluses to everything.
Listen, I'm standing there on day one with Diane Lane here and Robin Wright here doing this, and I was like on this set of the almost unbelievable White House set that one could possibly conjure up, and I was thinking, yes, it's a good day at the office. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Amazing sets, for sure. Want to talk just quickly about parenthood and fatherhood. So you have daughters.
I was about to say I wasn't in Parenthood, but go ahead.
That I know. I am a fan of that show.
Okay,
I was
all right,
not in
all right.
Parenthood.
I didn't know where you were headed.
Neither the 1988 movie with Steve Martin nor the NBC show.
Right,
all right,
that's
I'm
correct.
clear on that. Good.
Although I almost did the NBC show.
All right, so if this interview was not right, but you were about 45.
Yes.
And you said you would discourage your daughters from entering the acting world, but you would confer with Will Smith to see how it was going. I'm reading quotes. So.
Well, we know not to trust your information.
Apparently not. Jesus. But anyway, if I were asking you fresh, how would you feel about your daughters entering showbiz, especially in the Time's Up era?
I would listen if they were interested in it. I would. I think I'm. Proud to be an actor, and I think that it's a great vocation. It's very hard, it's very competitive, but so are a lot of other jobs. So, my hope is that they're passionate about something first and foremost, and if it's acting, great. None of them have shown like any sign. Cut to all these years later, whenever I said that, and I promise you, that's not my influence at all. I'd welcome them, but they haven't really shown any interest in it. So they haven't even seen a lot of the things I've done. I can't get them to watch my movies. Why they don't want to be actors?
They just want to be around music, fun stuff.
Yeah, well, they're more studious than their father.
Well, good for them.
Yes,
That's
absolutely,
good.
absolutely.
Well, I know that they have a good role model, whether they enter, the acting world or not. Dream role before we wrap up.
Dream role?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Is that a role that's been written or hasn't been written?
Doesn't matter.
Well, it's impossible to answer.
Well, I don't know.
That's a really tough. It's a really tough question. I don't know. Dream role. I always thought Castaway looked like such an incredible. Tom was so amazing in that movie. It just really stuck with me, that film, always, and the idea of them all off on this deserted, faraway place shooting this, and it really is a human study, and obviously you get to work on your suntan, so that would have been pretty good. I don't know. I mean, like when I get asked that question, I always feel like at the end of the day, the dream role is in a script that I haven't read yet, and what that role is, I wasn't smart enough to come up with. I wasn't nuanced enough to find something that really would speak to me. But tip of the hat to the great writers who do all of the hard work and start with a blank page is that, you know, that you read something and you're like, wow, that is really interesting. I hadn't thought of that, and it kind of touches you, you know, creatively, and off you go. And then they have to offer you the role, too.
Right, and then you have to, right. It's nice to be asked.
That's right.
All right, well, this has been Greg Kinnear. As you know, I've asked all the questions. There's no more.
Everything. You got everything.
I covered everything.
We've covered everything.
You can check him out on the final season, season 6 of House of Cards on Netflix, airing November 2nd.
That's what we said.
November 2nd, and thanks for joining us.
So they're all live watching
They're
us?
all live. Say hi. We used to take questions, but
Hi.
you know,
Let's get a few questions from the audience if we could, please.
Oh, we have a question?
Do we have any?
All right,
do we have a question? Do we have
we
any
are
questions?
live.
I'm not leaving until I get one damn question from the audience.
Oh,
I'll
wait.
stay here all night. Jimmy Fallon can wait.
When is the Talk Soup reboot, please?
Oh, right. Yeah, there's your great role, right?
See, there's-
Greg Kinnear, Talk Soup, the motion picture, coming soon to a theater near you. Do we have that question? We don't have a question.
Another question? All right. No more questions.
All
Sorry,
right.
Greg.
Okay.
Next time we'll solicit more,
All
and
right.
then
We're wrapping up.
We're wrapping
Feels like
up.
this is the end.
It's like it's the end.
Feels like this is the end.
All right. You want to sing us out with a couple bars of Summertime?
No. Wow.
Yeah, see.
That was me.
Yeah.
By the way, I was damn good in that song.
You were.
Yeah.
Stuck on You, Summertime. Check it out.
People are like, what the hell is he doing?
All right. Go listen to Rihanna's Indecent Song.
That's right.
January 2018. Thank you so much for
right.
joining us.
Thanks.
And,
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
don't get up
Thank
yet.
you. Oh, stay here. Stay seated. Don't look
Have a
like
great
you're
day.
walking away.